Hello, good morning. Welcome to UNCC. Today, we are having the meetings of human rights, faith, and Dharma, aligning inner conviction with just actions. This meeting is convened by the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in partnership with BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980 and Dharma Alliance. Yes. So in the morning, the programs, we will be starting the first program by welcoming you with the excellent performance by Dr. Lewis. So please, Dr. Lewis will be playing his flute for the opening ceremonies. Yes, please, welcome here. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. UN officials, it's an honor to be with all of you, gentlemen and gentlemen. Thank you very much. It will be just one song because you have a magnificent and fruitful meeting. Just to introduce very shortly, because it has to be with today's, I will introduce my flute invention. You have 4 cultures here in one sound. And this has to be with multiculturality, or also interculturality, which is one of the aspects of human rights. So Faithful Rights promote human rights. Then I would like to mention that this is the Inca flute 5,000 years ago. And this head joint, exactly here, is the same one like the Shao from China, is the same one. We were connected 1,000 years ago, and it's the same one like shakuhachi from Japan. So when I came to Denmark, I cut this because this is the best sound. And I studied at the conservatory. I was very fascinated about this key mechanism from Europe. So here you have 3 Asian cultures: Incas, Peru, Japan, and Asian China, but connected to the European Western. Yes. So I would like to perform a Japanese song. When I was teenager, I went to Japan and I lived 5 years. I was a monk by the blessings of the No Theater Hideo Kanse. And I would like to perform for you this unity performance between the instrument, my physical body, and the mind. The next song is from Japan. The name is Gamma and promotes strength, inner world, and harmony.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis. Uh, Music is a universal language, and I think in all belief and faith, we use the music to be a connectivities to the divine power. So I believe the message by the performance after Dr. Lewis has been connected with divine power. So it's a kind of receiving a blessing today for the opening sessions. Thank you. Uh, Next, we will be having a welcome address uh, by Mr. Maris Sangiampongsa, Vice Chairman and Deputy Secretary General of BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980, and followed by Ms. Cynthia Veliko, Regional Representative of UN-OHCHR in Southeast Asia, and Dr. Prashant Sharma, President and co-founder of Dharma Alliance Geneva. Okay, please, thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome, everyone. My speech might not be able to entertain you like Dr. Lewis is doing, but there's an expression within UN and the diplomatic corps that's no free lunch or dinner or whatever, because we have to speak. And all of you, the audience, you also have no free lunch or free dinner or free breakfast. You have to listen, even though you don't want to listen. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor and deep gratitude that I welcome you all to the sixth annual Faith for Rights meeting held under the auspices of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioners for Human Rights, co-sponsored by BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980 and the Peace Alliance. We gather here at the critical times in our shared histories. Around the world, society faces complex challenges, conflict, inequality, climate crisis, and the rise of divisions and intolerance. In the midst of these challenges, faith and belief remains a powerful source of inspiration. Faith traditions at their best remind us of the inherent dignity of every human being, of our duties to care for one another, and of the shared responsibilities to protect our common home. The Faith for Rights framework built bridges between universal human rights and the moral wisdom of religious traditions. It invites us to move beyond dialogue towards joint action, where religious leaders, civil societies, and the government work together to advance peace, justice, and human dignity for all. Over the past 6 years, this initiative has grown into a unique space where faith, based on actors of human rights advocates, engage in constructive cooperation. It has shown us that while our traditions may differ, our value of compassion, respect, and solidarity unite us. The meeting is not only an opportunity to reflect on achievement, but also a call to action. We must strengthen our commitment to protect the vulnerable, to counter hate speech and discrimination, to promote gender equality, and to ensure that freedom of thought, consent, and religion are safeguarded everywhere. I invite each of you to contribute with openness, courage, and creativity. Let this gathering be a source of renewed inspiration, so that when we leave this hall, we do so with a stronger collective resolve to transform faith into action and convictions into cooperation. Excellency, distinguished participants, let me turn your attention a little bit to the faith of Dharma, where wholesome mind or Kusolajit is a key factor leads to global peace and stability. When we speak of peace, our focus often turns ourselves to negotiation, treaty, and political agreements. I've gone through all of this process for a long period of time. I've served at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for 36 years. These are necessary, yet they are not sufficient. For lasting peace is not born in parliament halls or even not in government chamber or in courts. It is born in the human heart and mind. In many wisdom traditions, including the Dharma path, we find a framework of cultivating a wholesome mind, and they are Sila or Sin, that we call, Samadhi or Samadhi, and Panya. Sila or morality is the foundation. It is the practice of right conduct, of choosing compassion over harm, and justice over exploitation. A society grounded in morality protects the vulnerable and nurtures trust among people. Samadhi, or concentration, is the training of attention and mindfulness in a world of destruction and division. Concentration gives clarity. It enables us to listen deeply, to act with calm rather than impulse, and to see beyond our own narrow interests. Panya or wisdom is the flowering of insight. It is the understanding that all beings are interconnected, that peace for one cannot come at the expense of another. Wisdom allows us to act not only for a short-term gain, but for a long-term good of humanity and for our planet. Together, morality, concentration, and wisdom form the architectures of a wholesome mind. And the world shaped by wholesome mind is the world moving towards peace and security. Think of the crisis we face today: conflict between nations, intolerance between communities, the degradations of our environment. Each of these has its roots not in external conditions, but it is in inner conditions such as anger, greed, fear, and ignorance. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, global peace is not built only in conference hall and government chamber, like I said earlier. It begins in the silence of meditation, in the patience of family, in the compassion of neighbors, in the wisdom of community. Imagine a world where nations invest not only in weapons of defense, but in the cultivations of human characters. Imagine a generation rise not in fears of differences, but in appreciations of our shared humanity. Imagine leaders guided not by anger or ambition, but by morality, concentration, and wisdom. This is not a utopian dream. It is the practical path to a sustainable peace. For when minds are wholesome, actions are just. And when actions are just, societies are stable. And when society are stable, the world is at peace. Let us therefore commit ourselves not only to shaping policy, but to cultivate Sila, Samadhi, and Panya within ourselves and our communities. For from wholesome mind through global peace, will surely arise. On behalf of the institutions of BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980, I warmly welcome you and wish you all a fruitful and inspiring conference today. Thank you very much.
Swadika, good morning, and I'm delighted to be here. Excellencies, venerable monks, distinguished scholars, colleagues, and friends. On behalf of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, it's my great honor to welcome you to this event, which is part of the 6th annual meeting of the Faith for Rights community of practices. I wish to express my deep appreciation to our partners, the BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980 Institute and Dharma Alliance, for their vision, dedication, and generosity in making this gathering possible. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to SCAP for making this United Nations Conference Center available, and to the people of Thailand for their generous and gracious hospitality in hosting these meetings. As we begin today, allow me to emphasize one essential point. Although we are meeting here today in Thailand and in Asia, this is not a regional gathering. It's truly a global one. We are joined in person by participants from Australia, Colombia, Egypt, Germany, Greece, India, Italy, Indonesia, Lebanon, Malaysia, Mauritania, Peru, Senegal, Spain, Sri Lanka, Switzerland, Thailand, the UK, and the United States. I hope I haven't missed anybody, with many more joining virtually. This remarkable diversity reflects the Faith for Rights. It represents a global community of conscience that transcends geography, culture, and belief in the pursuit of our shared humanity. Holding the 6th meeting in Asia helps us to expand global dialogues, ensuring that the wisdom of every tradition contributes to our collective understanding and that learning flows in all directions. The Faith for Rights framework was launched by OHCHR in 2017, and it was designed to strengthen the bridges between faith-based actors and human rights protection. It grew from nearly a decade of reflections on how to address hate speech while also promoting freedom of religion and expression, as enshrined in Articles 18 and 20 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Since then, Faith for Rights has evolved into a vibrant global community of practice that's guided by 18 communities and that translates shared ethical and spiritual principles into human rights action. Over the years, from Beirut to Geneva to Rabat, and also to Asia, this initiative has nurtured a profound conversation between belief and universal human dignity. Today's meeting broadens and enriches this conversation by specifically including Dharmic and indigenous perspectives, which represent more than 2 billion people worldwide. Bringing Faith for Rights to Asia and to Thailand in particular is both timely and symbolic. This region is home to ancient Dharmic and indigenous traditions that emphasize harmony, mindfulness, and interdependence of all beings, principles that radiate beyond Asia and resonate across cultures and communities worldwide. For too long, these perspectives have remained at the margins of international human rights dialogues, despite their deep ethical and philosophical resonance with universal values. These traditions remind us that rights and duties are inseparable, and that compassion and justice are not opposites, but complementary paths to peace. The theme of today's program, Human Rights, Faith and Dharma, Aligning Inner Conviction with Just Action, captures the very heart of the Faith for Rights framework. It invites us to bridge the inner and outer dimensions of human experience, to translate conviction into compassion and belief into action that uplifts others. In an era that is marked by division, conflict, and erosion of trust, this alignment between conscious and action is both timely and it's essential to advancing human rights and peace throughout the world. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, recently highlighted that, I quote, "The ethical and spiritual foundations of religion and belief have an essential role in addressing the polarization and conflicts that are disfiguring our world and in contributing to reconciliation. There is an urgent need for religious leaders from all faiths to work together to promote the shared, universal principles of human dignity and compassion and to transform them into acts of solidarity," end quote. I wish to recognize our many distinguished participants, special rapporteurs, treaty body experts, scholars, faith leaders, and youth representatives who have joined us from across the world. We're particularly grateful for the strong participation of the Thai colleagues whose perspective ground us in this global dialogue in local wisdom and lived experience. This gathering also reflects a deepening partnership between OHCHR and Dharmic and Indigenous communities alongside a broad range of international collaborators. Let me in this context also welcome several women religious leaders and female scholars from Mauritania, Senegal, and Egypt. As we begin this peer-to-peer learning event, we look forward to a rich exchange of ideas and experiences and insights across faiths, traditions, and disciplines. May this meeting inspire all of us to reflect deeply on how inner convictions can transform into concrete, constructive action that upholds human rights and dignity for everyone. Through dialogue, shared learning, and mutual respect, we have the opportunity to strengthen the Faith for Rights community and broaden the impact of its commitments worldwide. On behalf of OHCHR, I warmly welcome each and every one of you, both here in person as well as online, and from Thailand and around the world, to this important gathering. May I also take the opportunity to thank my colleagues from OHCHR for supporting to put this workshop together. May our discussions today remind us that universality grows through diversity and that human rights flourish when inner convictions meets just action. Thank you, Swadika, and I wish you a productive and inspiring session. Kap kun ka.
Thank you, Cynthia. That was very inspiring. I don't think I have much to add after that. Uh, but yeah, so at the risk of sounding a bit repetitive, I'd like to, of course, welcome everybody, venerable monks, excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. Very good morning, Sawadee Khap, Namaste. It's both a privilege and a joy to welcome you on behalf of Dharma Alliance to this gathering on human rights, faith, and Dharma, aligning inner conviction with just action. Today's meeting is a part of the week-long program for the 6th annual meeting of the Faith for Rights Community of Practices. Over the past days, we have engaged in meaningful deliberations at Siem Reap and at the majestic Angkor Wat Temple Complex, participated in discussions at Wat Mahathat yesterday, and in Bangkok, of course. And now we come together here at the UN Conference Center with today's program culminating at the Wat Bowonniwet Vihara. These meetings have been guided, I must add, by the wisdom of Venerable Dr. Anil Sakya and Venerable Dr. Medivarayan, whose insights have deepened our reflections and enriched our collective understanding. I would also like to extend sincere appreciation to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and, of course, BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980 Institute and all participants, very importantly, in these gatherings. Your collaboration embodies the essence of today's dialogue, bringing together wisdom, conviction, and cooperation in the service of humanity. Dharma Alliance itself was founded in 2021 in Geneva as a neutral, independent, non-political, and non-sectarian institution. Our mission is to introduce dharmic and indigenous perspectives into global policy. Located at the heart of multilateral diplomacy, we serve as a policy platform, convening space, a knowledge hub connecting North and South, East and West. Our work translates enduring dharmic principles into practical pathways for peace, sustainability, and shared prosperity. During the fifth annual meeting in Geneva in November last year, 2024, it was noted that the awareness of dharmic traditions remained limited in these discussions. To broaden participation and enrich the dialogue, it was proposed and enthusiastically received that the next annual meetings should be held in Asia. Hosting this meeting in Asia, and Cynthia referred to it in her remarks as well, achieves several purposes. It brings global standard setting processes outside of the usual centers and into regions historically which have been on the periphery of such processes. It also highlights dharmic and indigenous traditions, which, as open and plural philosophical systems, offer fresh insights, even if ancient ones, into global discussions on human rights and peace building. Although dharmic and indigenous traditions inspire over 2 billion people worldwide, almost a quarter of humanity, these perspectives have often been underrepresented in the faith for rights process. Recognizing this, Dharma Alliance continues to work closely with the Faith for Rights team at OHCHR, and I'm very grateful to both Ibrahim, of course, who was a progenitor of some of these of this process, and Michael, who've been very welcoming and very open in this engagement that we've had with them over the last few years. We continue to work closely with the team to ensure that these voices are heard and contribute substantively to the dialogue. Dharmic traditions themselves emphasize pluralism, non-violence, service, and interdependence, principles that resonate deeply with human rights and ethical action. They provide practical guidance for translating values into meaningful action and ethical action, locally and globally, both. Dharma speaks in that sense to the natural order and the values that sustain life. Importantly, it is at once both personal and universal, aligning inner awareness with right action. At a time, and this is, I think, critical in the context that we are in, when global governance seeks renewed trust, Dharma offers a language of coherence and balance. It calls us to act with integrity, build relationships rooted in sympathy and empathy, more importantly, seek solutions that uphold both justice and compassion. In this way, Dharma complements and deepens the vision of human rights, ensuring that rights are enlivened by moral purpose and a grounding in interdependence. The Faith for Rights framework provides a vital reference point for this dialogue, one that Dharma can enrich not only through its emphasis on harmony, ethical conduct, and the unity of life, but also by highlighting the principle of duty, the understanding that rights are inseparable from responsibilities, something that Most Venerable Dr. Anil Sakya mentioned in the meetings at Mahathat yesterday, and that ethical obligations are essential to sustaining justice and human dignity. As we begin today's discussions reflecting on diversity and universality, ethical responsibility, and the shared search for truth, may we do so now with open hearts and humility. Dharma teaches that learning and action grow together, understanding ripens through service, and justice is realized through compassion. On behalf of Dharma Alliance, I warmly welcome you all. May this gathering in Bangkok deepen our insight, strengthen our partnerships, and inspire us to let Dharma shine as a guiding light for peace, prosperity, and the flourishing of all beings. Thank you so much. And I'd like to end with a little a shlok from Sanskrit, from the Rig Veda, which essentially calls upon, it's a very universalist prayer, and I'll translate it briefly. It goes something like this: Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kashchit dukh bhag bhavet, which broadly means, may there be Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. I always have to remind myself and say this in Sanskrit to remember the order. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. May there be happiness and peace everywhere. Sarve Santun. May there be good health everywhere and for all. It's always for all. Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani. May there be shared prosperity for all. And, and of course, in the end, may there not be any suffering for anyone anywhere. And it is a very all-encompassing, inclusive shlok, which simply says these are the principles for all that inhabit this earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I think we have been listening, and then the core of summarization is that the sharings of the duty and responsibilities toward the peace. So I hopefully that today panel sessions we will be discussing more, exchanges more, and we will be walking towards the peace for the human rights, regardless of beliefs and faith. Thank you. So. Okay, now we will be having a keynote address by His Venerable Dr. Anil Sakya of Bowonniwet. He will be giving us a lot of wisdom. And we will be having Dr. Supachai Verapuchong, Vice Chairman and Secretary General of BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980, who he will guide us about the path to the responsibilities. So welcome, His Venerable and Dr. Supachai. Thank you.
So good morning to all. Hope that you had a good evening last night with a cruise dinner and had a good sleep so that we can be fresh today. Thank you for many of us who come from different faith group. I noticed that there's the Thai Brahmin here, which is very unique, which is very different from what you used to see in the Indian Brahmin. We have a very Thai Brahmin here. And then I also see some other group here. So thank you for coming. Well, this is something very interesting and very new way of thinking, I guess, that from Asia, because the faith for action has been mainly dominated in the West, and then we hardly hear about that. Of course, the role played by the OHCHR, Human Commission, is very difficult for me. I guess that I don't have that right, I guess. The High Commission of the Human Rights has been a very, very influential organizations that actually in every country and every community, we have to really rely on such organization to keep the balance of the things. As today I am asked by the organizers, although I am also part of the organizing committee. So anyway, I was asked to say something about reconciling diversity and universality through Dharma, the ethical foundations of rights and responsibility. Well, 77 years ago, the world came together to proclaim the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. a moral compass for humanity after the devastation of war. That declaration was and still a profound statement of faith in human dignity, that every person is born free and equal rights and should be allowed to live their life in the best possible way. Yet, we know this version remains unfinished. Human rights continue to revolve, shaped and sometimes challenged by deep diversities of our world, cultural, spiritual, and moral. It is often assumed that human rights have one single meaning. But when we listen carefully to the moral tradition of different civilizations, we find that understanding right is deeply contextual. In the West, rights are often understood as individual entitlements. In much of Asia, they are viewed through relationship as responsibilities within a web of community and interdependence. In other words, where the language of law speaks rights, in Asian Dharma-based tradition, they express as responsibilities and mutual obligations. Thus, the Asian moral imaginations remind us that what sustains human dignity is not only what we demand, but what we give. This perspective invites us to balance the language of rights with the language of responsibilities, and to root both in the deeper principle of Dharma. And in truth, these two languages are not opposites. They are two halves of the same whole. The Sanskrit word Dharma, or in Pali is Dhamma, means that which upholds or that which sustains. It refers to the natural and moral law that maintain harmony in the universe. It is the principle that keeps life in balance, sustaining justice, peace, and well-being. In this sense, Dharma is not merely a religious concept. It is what we might today call sustainability in action. In fact, what the Buddha delivered, his first sermon after enlightenment, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, or turning the wheel of the Dharma, he was in essence speaking of the sustainable development in action. That discourse was not a dogma, but a guide to balance, the middle way which sustains well-being and harmony of all beings. Dharma, therefore, is sustainability in its truest and most holistic sense, spiritual, ethical, ecological, and social. It is a timeless wisdom of how to live in harmony with oneself, with others, and with the natural world. It teaches that all life is interdependent and that our happiness is inseparable from the happiness of others. My happiness depends on yours. Your peace sustains mine. This understanding that all life is interwoven is the bridge that reconciles diversity and universality. The UDHR, drafted in 1948, was a magnificent step towards universal justice. Yet, like all human creations, it carries the marks of its time. For example, the repeated use of the pronoun his without her, though unintentional, reminds us that even universal ideals evolve through human limitation. The UDHR, like Dharma, must continue to evolve to better reflect the cultural, spiritual, and ethical diversities of humanity. It is not a finished text, but a living process, a moral dialogue that must keep turning like the wheel of the Dhamma itself. The Buddha's teaching of the middle way provides timeless wisdom for the practice of human rights today. We see two extremes in the modern world. One where rights are neglected, where life, liberty, and dignity are denied. The other where rights are absolutized, where people become consumed by entitlement, forgetting compassion and collective responsibility. Both lead to imbalance. The middle way teaches balance. To claim our right with mindfulness and to fulfill our duties with compassion. Justice without compassion becomes cold. Compassion without justice becomes weak. The middle way unites both, giving us a vision of human rights rooted in balance, not conflict. In this balance lies the seed of sustainable and peaceful society. In Buddhism, the ethical foundation of Dharma is expressed through the 5 precepts, known as Sinha Panchasila. 1. Learn to abstain from taking life, learn to abstain from taking what is not given, learn to abstain from the sensual misconduct, learn to abstain from the false speech, and learn to abstain from the intoxicant that could the mind. These precepts are not commandments, but voluntary disciplines, ethical commitments to protect life, protect property, protect dignity, protect truth, and encourage mindfulness. So, this is among these 5 precepts, which is put in a very simple word, as a foundations, as a truly human being who respect the right of others. In that 5 precepts, I just want to really focus on the third one, which actually we understand, obviously, said that particularly very, very kind of a interpretation, I guess, or kind of just a shifting the interpretation. They said sexual misconduct. But based on the Pali term, the kame sumichachara, is often translated as refraining from the sexual misconduct, but its essence is much, much far deeper. In the sense, it means one should not infringe upon the rights of others through the 5 senses, to respect the personal, emotional, and spiritual boundaries of every being. In this sense, the third precept directly encapsulates the earliest concept of human rights taught by the Buddha himself 2,500 years ago. It upholds the principle that each being is sovereign over their own body, dignity, and freedom. A vision of respect that transcends gender, status, and all species. When practiced sincerely, the 5 precepts become a living constitution, a Dharma-based human rights framework rooted in compassion, restraint, and mutual respect. Guided by Dharma, he renounced violence and proclaimed the equality of all beings and tolerance for all faith. One of the great King Asokas was in the 3rd century BCE. And in his edicts, it is well carved that in stone across the vast empire of the Indian subcontinent, that he affirmed that justice, fairness, and the welfare of including animals was there. He declared, it is my desire that should be uniformity in law and uniformity in justice. These were among the earliest articulation of universal moral law, echoing the same principle later enshrined in the UDHR. Asoka's Dharma, like the UDHR, affirmed the same truth, that the foundation of peace is compassion in action. And this verse is we always hear from His Holiness Dalai Lama as well. What is the word religion? He said that my religion is a compassion in action. Distinguished friends, allow me to now reconnect these reflections to the United Nations Faith for Right initiative. This initiative invites the world's faith traditions to work together to promote human dignity, equality, and peace, to transform belief into shared ethical action. In this noble effort, the Dharma tradition, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, and others can play a vital and distinctive role. The Dharma approaches begin not from divine command, but from direct realization of interdependence and compassion. It seems that human rights, not only as a protection from the harm, but as an expression of inner awakening, a reflection to the truth that all beings share the same nature of suffering and hope. One, an ethical shift from entitlement to responsibility. So integrating the Dharma into the faith of rights framework can offer three valuable contributions. One, an ethical shift from entitlement to responsibility. Dharma reminds us that rights are sustained by duties, that compassion is the guardian of justice. Two, a universal language of compassion. Dharma transcends creed or doctrine. It speaks through the value of nonviolence, mindfulness, and interdependence, value that unite all faiths. And three, a path inner transformation. The Buddha taught that outer peace arises from inner peace. True human rights flourish only when the human mind is purified by greed, hatred, and delusion. Integrating Dharma into the faith of right initiative, I would thus expand human rights discourse from a legal enforcement to spiritual responsibility, from political aspiration to ethical practice. It would guide humanity from the struggle for rights to the cultivation of a caring and compassionate society. This integration is not about replacing one system with another, but about creating harmony between universal law and inner truth, between rights and Dharma. Rights protect us, but they cannot by themselves create peace. Peace arises when rights are balanced with compassion. A society that cultivates empathy and mindfulness no longer needs to enforce morality, because moral awareness rises naturally from the heart. That is the vision of Dharma, to transform human rights from external law into inner virtue, so that law and love become one. That is the essence of Dharma. And that is a deeper goal of the faith of right initiative, to awaken in each human heart the spirit that sustains peace. Dharma teaches that diversity and universality are not opposite. They are interdependent truths. In the teaching of the dependent origination, the Buddha said, all things arises in dependence upon cause and conditions. Thus, no person, no culture, and no right exists in isolation. Each is sustained by the whole. This truth reminds us that we are not separate. My dignity depends on yours. My freedom depends on the peace of others. To honor this interdependence is to reconcile diversity with universality. To recognize that we are many in form, but one in essence. Diversity and universality are not contradictions. They are reflections of the same Dharma of interbeing. Finally, I would like to propose 7 pathways for future collaboration between Dharma-based tradition and faith for rights framework. 1. Establish a Dharma and right working group. I propose the creation of Dharma and right working group within the Faith of Rights Network. Its goal to explore how Dharma-based values, truth, compassion, self-restraint, interdependence, and justice can enrich and contextualize universal human rights education and advocacy. This group would bring together scholars, faith leaders, and practitioners from Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh background, alongside Christianity, Judaism, Islam representative who are interested in ethical living and sustainability. 2. Develop Dharma-inspired learning modules for the Faith for Rights Academy. I suggest that a Faith for Right Academy include Dharma-centered learning modules focused on the ethical responsibility, non-harming, and mindful existence. These can illustrate how Dharma principles resonate with the 18 Faith of a Right commitments, especially those concerning dignity, non-discrimination, and the care for creation. Such modules could be piloted in monastic, temple, and interfaith educational institutions across Asia. 3, host Dharma dialogue on faith for right in Asia. I propose organizing regional dialogues and a community workshop under the Faith for Right framework in Dharma-based regions such as Cambodia, Thailand, India, Bhutan, Nepal, and so on. Each dialogue can explore themes like harmony as a human rights, interdependence and a global responsibility, or even sustainability through Dharma. These gatherings could showcase how ancient moral frameworks remain deeply relevant to modern human rights challenges. 4, integrate Dharma principles into sustainability and a climate change initiative, climate justice initiative. Highlight that Dharma, as its essence, is the law of balance and a right relationship with self, others, and the nature. I suggest that Faith for Right collaborate with Dharma-based ecological movement and faith communities to promote environmental right as human rights. Yesterday, we went through the ceremony, which is very, very typical. It has been carried on from 2,500 years ago. The robe itself, just given that the king gave a piece of white cloth, but within that a few hours, we made it to a certain ready-made robe by cutting, by sewing, by dyeing and drying. We finished that cloth about 2 o'clock in the morning. And then we shared that we got one piece of cloth. Who is suitable to get that among the hundreds of monks? We are kind of using very recycled idea, kind of a very, very honoring the nature and how do we live as a compassionate world. So the 5th, launch a compassionate society initiative. I advocate for a new Faith for Right initiative titled Compassionate Societies, aimed at promoting ethical leadership, mindfulness in public service, and community care rooted in Dharma-based virtues. The present Thai king, His Majesty the King Rama X, one of his kind of very, very corner project is that once he got into the throne, he used the word Chit Asa, which basically means that he said that we have to really change the whole perspective by public service, by voluntary public service. Is one of the pilot project His Majesty King, doing through all over the country. Using not even the money, single penny, but able to mobilize, able to change all the traditions, everything what is going on in names of a development, in names of a nature, in terms of a climate change, and even names of the all belief. So 6, establish a research hub on Dharma tradition and human rights. I suggest forming a Dharma tradition and human rights research network, possibly in partnership with the leading universities and monastic institute in Asia. This research could document how Dharma-based civilization historically linked moral law with social justice and how those insights can contribute to a global human rights discourse today. Last, the 7th, which is the 1 week of our life, draft a shared ethical charter of draft a shared ethical charter on Dharma and human rights. I encourage the creation of a shared ethical charter uniting Dharma-based moral values with the Faith for Rights commitments. The charter could affirm principles such as the unity of life and interdependence of all beings, responsibility as a natural counterpart of rights, compassion and truth as a universal moral foundation. This would serve as a moral bridge between a diverse religious and a humanistic tradition. Dear friends, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights gives us a legal foundation for justice. The Dharma gives us spiritual foundation of sustainability. Together, they can lead humanity towards a future that is lawful and loving, diverse and harmonious, responsible and free. With Dharma informs the Faith for Right initiatives, we begin to see human rights not just as policy, but as a part of awakening, a journey towards more compassionate, mindful, and peaceful humanity. When Dharma informs human rights and compassion become the measure of justice, the wheel of the Dharma turns once more, guiding us towards a sustainable and peaceful world for all beings. That is how we may reconcile diversity and universality through the living Dharma that upholds all life. Well, after a long deliberation, please allow me to end by saying, Dharma reminds us that human rights are not granted, they are realized through righteous living. When faith traditions stand together in compassion and responsibility, we move from protecting rights to cultivating harmony. This is the future of faithful rights, a future rooted in the Dharma, where universality is not a concept, but a lived experience. Thank you. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings live in peace. Thank you. Yeah,
Sorry for my eyesight. I have big trouble with my left eye. So, Excellency, distinguished delegate, venerable monastic, respect representative of diverse faith tradition, esteemed colleagues and dear friends from around the world. It is a profound honor on the behalf of BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980 Institute BGVI to welcome all distinguished delegates, representatives of diverse faith tradition, and human rights advocates to this important gathering at the United Nations Conference Center in Bangkok. Today, we come together not merely to exchange ideas, but to chart a shared path toward the future, one that connects human rights with the inner strength of faith and the illuminating light of Dhamma. The Faith for Right framework of the United Nations reminds us that human rights are not merely legal entitlement, but moral responsibility, requiring courage, compassion, and conviction. Rights must walk hand in hand with duty. For without responsibility, rights least become hollow word. From a Dhammic perspective, our conduct toward others, our community, and the planet is inseparable from very dignity we seek to uphold as human beings. At the same time, faith does not signify passive belief. It embodies a living process of seeking, questioning, learning, and engaging in interreligious and intercultural dialogue. Dhamma teaches that truth is not a fixed concept, but a living journey that we must walk together. To affirm the value of seeking is to cultivate humanity, unity, and a deep sense of cooperation among the mankind. When we speak of the Dhamma century, we do not refer merely to a century in time, but to an era of awakening, an age in which humanity rediscovered the law of truth, that transcend all religions and cultures. Dhamma is the law of nature, the universal order that sustains balance in the cosmos. It represents power, not of domination, but of liberation, the power of compassion, courage, and self-awareness. To live by Dhamma means to live with mindfulness in every breath, to perceive truth in every moment, and to act with kindness in every circumstance. In our contemporary world, the city of Ubon Ratchathani in Thailand has become center of what is now known as the world meditation city, a place where people from across the globe come to meditate and seek truth together. This movement symbolizes humanity shift from external pursuit toward inner peace and wisdom. Across the Mekong River Basin, a land through which Dhamma flow beyond borders, the Dhammayatra, or the pilgrimage of peace, have united heart and community across Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Vietnam. In Ubon Ratchathani alone, more than 600,000 people walk and meditate for peace each day. Each step is a prayer. Each breath a living Dhamma. This is the true reflection of the Dhamma century, an age where faith, human rights, and hope convert in harmony, where Dhamma is no longer confined to doctrine, but become a way of life and a peaceful force for transformation our world. On behalf of BGVI, I believe that today's meeting is not an endpoint, but is the beginning. A shared mission built on three essential foundations. First, to balance right and responsibility, reaffirming human dignity through compassionate accountability. Second, to honor seeking as an expression of faith, nurturing a culture of learning, dialogue, and humility across tradition. Third, to harmonize diversity with universality, creating unity within a difference as a basis for just and ethical action. Looking forward, the BodhiGayā Vijjālaya 980 Institute is committed to advancing the mission by empowering the voice of youth, ensuring the next generation not only inherit but lead the future. We will continue to promote inclusivity across all religious, gender, and identities, reflecting the true diversity of humanity. We will also continue to create mindful space, such as the Five Nation Dhammayatra across the Mekong region, where Dhamma endure as a bridge connecting heart and community. Let this gathering serve as a call to awaken the light of Dhamma within the human heart, to restore mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion as the cornerstone of a balanced and understanding global society. In the history of thought and action, this meeting may stand as a milestone of our shared mission, where inner conviction becomes an energy of responsibility, where diversity strengthens universality, and where Dhamma shines forth as a guiding light toward a world found on compassion, justice, and enduring harmony. The time has come for the global community to embrace and advance the Dhamma century as a collective journey towards peace, so that this world may truly become a home of understanding, love, and compassion for all beings. Thank you very much, everyone.
So just allow me to say a few words. I would like to really express my sincere appreciation for the subcommittee of religious movement, which is the national religious movement from under the Ministry of Culture from Thailand. I noticed that a few are here, so I would like to just identify a few here so you can have a direct to kind of communication and interaction between the Faithful Right in Geneva. I noticed that from the Catholic, from Catholic, yeah, this is a representative from the Thai Catholic here. And over there, I noticed, I said, you see the unique one is a Thai Brahmin here. And then, is there anyone from the มีคณะกรรมการของเราจากมีอีกไหมครับมีอีกไหมครับมีแค่2ท่านนะครับ Okay, I think at least 2. So you can have direct interactions that because it's supposed to be yesterday, but I think there's a miscommunication, so that they turn up today. So you can have a local sort of information and get gathering some of the data from their own and kind of prime data from themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Venerable. Thank you, Dr. Supachai. I think the main issues, the core of the speech given is something that we have to put out for the action in a compassionate way. And we do look forward to have 7 pathways that was guided by His Venerable, put into the actions by the Faith and Human Rights. So we will be starting our first panel. We will be discussing infusing entitlements with responsibilities, rebalancing the moral compass. Here we will have Ms. Nahla Haidar, Chief UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discriminations Against Women. We will be having Professor Jagbir Singh on the stage, Chancellor of Central Universities of Punjab, India. We welcome Professor Nicolas Leveret, UN Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues. And we do welcome Professor Amarjeeva Lochan, Vice President, International Association for the History of Religions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I'd like to start by saying you transformed me in 24 hours. So I had to work on my intervention because I had to take in a lot of what I received already yesterday. So I will not be talking to you with a legalistic tone only of a convention, but as a woman with the responsibility towards all the women that you represent, also in particular in this region. So I'm already being transformed personally. So you'll see how much my text has evolved from my first intervention yesterday. So once again, thank you very much. The theme that we are addressing makes me really think that across our traditions, whether we speak of the image of God, the breath of the divine, or the sacredness of life, one truth echoes: every human being, and therefore every woman, possesses inherent dignity. I think that women's human rights, as I said already yesterday, are not simply legal entitlements. They are spiritual affirmation of this sacred worth. But rights alone are not enough. As spiritual beings, we are also called to responsibility. And this was very much the call of the Honorable Monk yesterday, to use our freedom in ways that honor both self and the community. So today, I invite us to reflect on this balance. How can women's entitlement to human rights be fully affirmed while nurturing a spirituality of responsibility that deepens justice, compassion, and solidarity? Entitlement begins with recognition that no authority grants a woman her dignity because that dignity was never theirs to give. It is intrinsic, as sacred texts remind us. I hope we are all in agreement on that, because this is extremely important. In Genesis, humanity is created in the image of God. The Quran declares that God has honored the children of Adam. Buddhist and Hindu tradition speaks of the divine spark or Atman within each person. To affirm women's rights, then, is to honor the divine in them, their rights to learn, to lead, to speak, to choose, to flourish. That is not politics, it is sacred ethics. And I'm really saying that a lot of the changes that I brought came from what I have received yesterday as vibes from all of you. Spirituality never stops at self-affirmation. Every blessing is also a calling. Every right carries a responsibility, not imposed by patriarchy or law, but arising from moral awareness. For women, this responsibility is not about submission, it is about agency. It is the responsibility to use one's voice for those still silenced, to transform spaces of exclusion into spaces of inclusion. So a lot of the words again, Your Honor, and to weave justice with compassion. Responsibility in this sense is the spiritual practice of solidarity. It turns entitlement into transformation. Too often, however, responsibility has been misused. It's turned into a language of control. A responsible woman is obedient. A good woman sacrifices her dream. Such distortions betray both faith and human rights. They transform a sacred moral value into a cultural instrument of domination. And this is exactly what we are facing in our society. This is exactly what is the source of our suffering. The true responsibility cannot be commanded. It must be chosen. We were told yesterday, it is so important to freely and consciously choose in the light of one's conscience and mindfulness what is the sense of responsibility. The Faith for Rights initiative reminds us that faith and freedom belong together, that belief in the divine must lead to defense of human dignity, all human dignity. And what we have been witnessing in the dehumanization of being and being a woman from the Middle East, I can't help but think about what just happened and continues to happen, and dehumanizing particular people in Palestine, to be able to get rid of them without anyone raising their voice. This is extremely painful for me. So when a woman claims her rights, she exercises not only her political agency, but her spiritual agency. And yesterday, I said something about that as a secular, personally, and I was called integrist secular because at the time I didn't want to engage with religious leaders. I was always hiding behind secularism because I never trusted religion, because I never saw good results for women. And I come from a family of 6 sisters. So all my objective, my father's objective, was to push the barriers and to promote our capacities. So when I started to think that this is the wrong way to do things, because I met women who have faith and want to live within their faith, but they want their rights. So why do you put them in front of this impossible choice? Choose between your faith and your right. Or you are a good woman and you don't request anything, or if you are seek your right, then you are not a good woman. So when the woman uses the right responsibly to serve, to build peace, to advocate for others, she becomes a moral leader, not just a right holder. And this is what we see in many of the movement of women, human rights defenders and advocate, also of women coming from faith-based organization. So this is the area where entitlement meets responsibility, not in tension, but in harmony. Again, it's a takeaway for me from the meeting and from the process of Faith for Right over these 6-7 years and our meeting last year. Faith, after all, without responsibility, as we were told and as we know, and as was said earlier by His Excellency, becomes hollow. It becomes just a ritual. And rights without responsibility, they become empty privilege as well. So to balance entitlement with responsibility is to humanize the very language of rights, is to remember that equality is not only a legal project, but a spiritual calling. So the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women is not only a treaty for legal reason, it's for the uplifting of humanity, not to lose the potential of half of its population. When women stand tall in their entitlements and act with responsibility, they mirror the divine balance between justice and mercy, power and compassion, and we have seen them acting in this field. So let us say together, women are entitled to every right by virtue of their sacred dignity, and they carry within that freedom the holy responsibility to transform our world with justice, wisdom, and care. And they, as you know, as we all know, they have the responsibility. 80% of the care in the world is on the shoulders of women, caring for the elderly, caring for the family, caring. So, and this is not recognized and not economically valued, which is again another discrimination. That balance between what we claim and how we live it is where spirituality and human rights meet. And it is there that the promise of humanity begins to unfold. I thank you for your attention.
Namaskar. Good morning to all. Venerable respected chairman, honorable scholars, dear friends. It is a great honor for me to address the distinguished audience on a theme of profound significance. Faith for Rights. I'm grateful to the organizer of this event giving me opportunity to share my views on human rights through dharmic perspectives of Sikh faith. The modern global discourse on human rights is primarily rooted in liberal frameworks that highlights individual liberty, dignity, and justice. Whereas the dharmic traditions, including Sanatana, Bauddha, Jain, and Sikh, offer a vital complementary modern moral vision in which rights and duties are intrinsically interwoven. This perspective inspires a rebalancing of our moral compass, positioning human rights firmly within the context of responsibility and ethical consciousness. In the dharmic traditions, Dharma represents cosmic and moral order. As our Venerable Muni said, the dharmic worldview sees life as an interconnected moral cosmos, a web of reciprocal obligations. The welfare of one is dependent on the righteous conduct of all others. The holistic framework rebalances our moral compass by rooting human rights firmly in ethical responsibility. In Dharma tradition, the Dharma refers, as I already said, to a universal cosmic and moral order. In Jainism, Anekantavad, many-sided reality, and ahimsa, non-violence, affirmed coexistence. Similarly, the Vedic dictum, Ekam Sad Vipra Vahuda Vadanti, the truth is one. Sages express in differently. It expresses a pluralistic ethics which guarantees dignity and independent of belief. The Sikh tradition integrates faith, justice, and selfless service, seva, into a unified spiritual ethic that champions both human freedom and equality. In this view, rights are not mere entitlements, but sacred trust grounded in responsibility, compassion, and moral accountability. Dharma constitutes both moral and cosmic order. It places duty before rights. The inversion of rights and duties relationship ensures that moral responsibility forms the foundation of a just society. Human dignity is preserved not solely through the enforcement of rights, but through the conscientious cultivation of responsibility. Dharma thereby serves as a guardian of ethical balance, regulating freedom and nurturing genesis of social justice through spiritual awareness. Situated within the Dharma spectrum, Sikh faith arose in the 15th century under Guru Nanak Dev, advocating a spiritual revolution against social discrimination and gender inequality. Guru Granth Sahib, the holy text of Sikh faith, captures the spiritual foundation of equality. From one light, the entire universe has been created. So who is good and who is bad? This is written in our sacred text. The principle declares that no human being is superior or inferior by birth, wealth, caste, and creed. Each carries the same divine spark. The Sikh faith demonstrates equality as a lived practice through institutions like Langar, you all know, the community kitchen, where all sit together and share food as equals, irrespective of their individual status. In Sikh philosophy, rights and justice are inseparable, with freedom of conscience and faith regarded as a sacred right flowing from the divine justice. The martyrdom of Guru Tegh Bahadur, as we all know, is a timeless example of this ideal. The Guru sacrificed his life to oppose forcible conversion and defend freedom of faith, not merely for his own followers, but for all oppressed people. His action transformed spiritual conviction into a universal defense of human rights. The moral vision was further advanced by Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru, through the establishment of Khalsa in 1699. The Khalsa was conceived as a fellowship of saints and soldiers. The individual employing both spiritual purity and social courage. Their duty was to uphold truth, equality, and justice, even at the cost of life, as Guru Gobind Singh declared, recognize all mankind as one. The declaration formed the core of Sikh contribution to global humanism, a mandate to defend human dignity because it is divine. In Sikh philosophy, faith without justice and worship without active social engagement remains incomplete. In Sikh faith and Dharmic traditions, faith signifies a process of spiritual awakening rather than mere ritualism, where when the faith awakens, ego and discrimination dissolve. To see the same light in all beings, it is to destroy the very root of injustice. Thus, faith becomes a powerful spiritual force for equality and guardian and of human dignity. The Guru Gobind Singh, Guru Granth Sahib proclaims, all share in your grace. None are beyond you. Through such insight, faith transcends dogma, becomes an active moral energy, urging individuals towards righteous, compassionate, and courageous action. Dharma, indigenous and indigenous traditions, the local tradition, welcome dialogue and adaptation. They offer profound insights for complementary global discourse, discussion on peace, justice, and human rights. Across our world, indigenous traditions consistently reinforce dharmic insight that human rights are sustained through communal duties. Society is guided by ethical values like tolerance, respect, and coexistence, demonstrate how faith-based morality naturally upholds justice. Ancient thought about dharma emphasize rights flow from the responsible action, not assertion of rights. In conclusion, dharmic and Sikh perspectives unequivocally affirm that rights are inseparable from duties. They are sacred trusts bestowed by the Creator and sustained only when individuals uphold their moral obligations towards one another. Like Prashant ji quoted our scripture, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. In Sikh prayer, we say Sarbat da Bhala, welfare of all. So in Dharma tradition, insists on the welfare of all human beings, irrespective of any communal distinctions. In the end, I end with a personal note. I stand before you as a young man of 88. I was faltering, and I think our Dharma way of life has given me 3 harmonies. One harmony is harmony with nature. That is Ayurveda. Second harmony is harmony with self. That is yoga. And the third harmony it has given me, the harmony with the cosmos. It is Vedanta. So I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Dear friends of the Faith for Right framework that I have discovered in the past 5 days, religious and secular authorities, dear all, every believer and also non-believer is entitled to cultivate and profess his or her faith or convictions. The Human Rights Council has clearly and forcefully stated that this entitlement belongs to all individuals and that to be protected as a believer, there is no requirement that you belong to a faith community of any size or of any historical tradition. But naturally, faith is also a way to unite into a community those who share the same faith. There are communities of faith, very often called religions. Thus, this right to belong to a community of faith and to express it collectively through ceremonies or buildings like temples or other places of worship, or artistic and or sacred expressions such as statues, painting, music, and other forms of expression is also to be protected by the human rights framework. Naturally, protecting these manifestations of faith or of belief, of consciousness, goes much beyond individual rights, as you were saying. When you protect from destruction sacred places or statues, as it unfortunately still happens to religious minorities in still very too many places, you do not defend the individual right of the artist or the architect or the builder of the temple, but the right of the community to worship and to own such symbols or such places. So the entitlement concerns both individual believers and the community of faith that unites them. So it's not only an individual right, it is also the right of these communities of faith or religions. So we have there this link between the individual and a form of collective right. Naturally, there is diversity in beliefs, in faith, in religions. And as you said, and I fully agree, universality has to be seen as a lived experience, rebuilt not from Western historical tradition, but from grassroots experience, which will give us a more robust, vibrant, and genuine universality. As stated by the title of this panel, entitlement cannot go without responsibility. And as I've heard and learned this past 5 days, this is at the heart of this dharmic approach. So let's move to the responsibility side, which, from what I've heard and learned, is really central to many religious traditions. First, let's acknowledge that each different religion or community of faith was born in a specific context, at a specific time, in a specific place. Many religions have been successful to unite thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, or even billions of souls. I've heard that there are 2.2 billions of Dharma's practitioner or believer or both. I'm not very clear whether it's a belief or a practice, probably both. So that is very impressive and positive. But naturally, these space communities of religion do not live as closed spaces exclusive of each other. They have to dialogue, communicate, and they also mix. As do the believers that share this or that faith of belief. This is why some of those entitled to be protected in the practice and expression of their faith, consciousness, or belief do find themselves in the situation of belonging, in some cases, to religious minorities. And this is my concern. And unfortunately, many religious minorities are oppressed to different degree, which unfortunately sometimes go up to annihilation, that is killing. And they're being oppressed by persons belonging to a territorially dominant religion. This can and should not be accepted. This is where the entitlement and responsibility must go hand in hand. And I cannot, as a special rapporteur on minority issue, but also as a conscious human being, accept that persons belonging to a territorially or regionally dominant religion persecute persons belonging to a religious minority. And very often, the persecuted minority is itself part of a community of faith that is dominant in another context, country, or region. That cannot be. There is a responsibility for each community of faith, religion, to cherish diversity, including religious diversity, and to make sure that no persecution against any religious group can happen anywhere in the name of their own community of faith or religion. No hiding, no reciprocity in humiliation, oppression, or even killing. This is a responsibility which belongs to each community of faith or religion and to each of the members of any of these communities or religion, to ensure that no persecution, no crime, nowhere on earth is committed on behalf of by members of their community. This is how the entitlement that you have to freedom of religion, belief, or consciousness is symmetrical to responsibility as individual or as member of a faith community or religion to ensure that never your community or members of your community dare deny the entitlement of any person belonging to a different community of faith or religion to practice their own faith, belief, or religion. Thank you.
With my greetings and salutation to Buddhi Sangha, respected members of the team of three types, Dhamma BodhiGayā Institute, of course, human rights, which becomes a core and focal point of today's discussion. And I see amongst all of you, not only hues and cries of different varieties and colors, but also understanding for the last 5 nights the speeches and ideas of different people of different faiths in a great harmony, which is very much a big achievement of this gathering. And when we are here together, we see at the moment when we are discussing and trying to understand more and more, I feel at a great loss when I come to be a speaker at the end, because all the beautiful points have been stolen, presented so beautifully, so mindfully, that I am failing in words to express some ideas which may not be looking like echoing the same one. I try my best for that. I can see the person behind the entire force is behind us, Michael sitting in the darkness, but he's full of enlightenment. Thank you, Michael, to be here. And I can see Bhishma, the Royal Thai Court Brahmin, which whom I have nurtured from the age 6. It's great to see he's grown up that much to become second highest rank Brahmin in the Royal Court of King Rama X. And similarly, I can see Achan Prashant Anil has just left, knowing him since the days of Cambridge. Great seeing all of you. At the outset, I want to make it very clear that Dharma is not a representation of any religion. That has to be understood properly, because sometimes Dharma becomes identified with certain kinds of religious belief system, which is the great outcome of this debate and understanding this time. Dharma is rather a beholder of universal principles, which is completely embedded with justice, balance, and interdependence. Kindly note down the last word, interdependence. Dharma needs you. Dependence is internationally closer to each of us, whatever faith you have. So this is very important core factor of Dharma to be understood. As we have already heard from those great learning experts and teachers, that Dharmas has some kind of core value of universality. But this universality has to be understood that there is no uniformity. So all sorts of universality is an expression of several fragrance, several paths to truth, but not at the cost of human rights. So human rights stands very core to our understanding. We also understand that dharma and dharmic practices leads you to respecting the differences with full value of equality. So other than interdependence, understanding each other mutually in a very good harmony, you also have to understand human rights of our understanding and dharmic principle stands for equality for all in every sense. That is the core of dharma. Whatever you can say, you can find that the later dharma becomes important. The word dharma becomes very important for us understanding this part of the world. As Nicholas just spoken about the number 2.2 billion, I was just remembering 2 days ago in Cambodia, Dr. Supachai was adding 1.2 billion more that was of China. So he said it should be called 3.2 or 3.4 billion population. And I'm sure this is not only people's number, a figure, but they also believe and practice in their own ways, which is very significant. So a large number of dharmic traditional ideas may flow into us by this kind of gathering. I'm sure Asia, which is perhaps for the first time after Rabat hosting this place, interfaith type of a gathering, which should be called Faith for Rights. We should go further ahead down to Japan, Korea, or Bhutan, as suggested by you. Bhutan is a very important place of understanding that one. Another core feature which we have not escaped, but just we have come across casually, that Dharma also seeks from you service to the nation, service to the people, service to the humanity. And this kind of service can be of any nature. This you have to remember that this service is also meaning donation. And the best donation in dharmic tradition, whether it's Sikhism, Jainism, or Buddhism, is that called Gupta Danam, the secret donation. So donor doesn't put the name, just puts the money into the box without name. That is understood to be the best donation in all dharmic traditions. So this is a very important point, that anonymity of donation, not to be known that I did it, because I doesn't stand in a way which we think of other traditions. In dharmic tradition, I does not exist. It is always we. This is very important to learn about that. Lastly, Dharma is a moral framework, which we have just heard from some great speakers today. And it echoes in all sets of religion. It's not that is a domain which belongs to Dharma tradition only. Many of Dharmic traditions and understanding we will find very much reflected in other religions. Let us work together, make a Dharmic charter, as was discussed in the morning, and it becomes a core understanding for all humanities to come in this modern time of fight and war and all violence, I'm sure these echoes coming out of Bangkok declaration, which might happen today, I am very much hopeful that this gathering is going to be a path finder, path breaker, and combining, mending all hearts together. Thank you so much.